Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to part 2 of Buyside, otherwise known as Percy. In part 1, we went ahead and covered all of the different parts of the home valuation system, and we also covered our BMA, our buyer market analysis. So that is the public-facing side of our home value system, and also the piece that you can take that's nice and formal that you can take with you on a listing presentation or on a consultation if you needed to. So today we're going to talk about part 2, and the part 2 of this is that buyer matching system. So what we're going to do is we are going to actually take all of this input that we've already had, and we're going to talk about how we can generate more sales by matching buyers to listings and listings to buyers that are in the system. But first things first, we actually do need to go back and start over one more time with our home valuation system so that we can see how this all works into different pieces that we have in our system. There's actually 4 parts to this. So let's go ahead and take a look at a single report. Let's start taking a look at buyers, and let's take a look at listings in the system. So I happen to be on Ralston Audain's home valuation system today. This is, of course, the public-facing side. This is the home valuation piece that you can share on social media or in your email. This, of course, is attached to every site builder website we also have in the company. So you are welcome to share this and use this. And if you remember from my last class, once we start putting an address in here and we get all the way to the bottom, we're going to have a list of buyers that we can take a look at. And that's where we're going to start today. All right, so I'm going to start by entering an address. So again, this is just a refresher from the last class. And as my usual disclaimer, this is my in-laws' house, so please don't contact them. She's definitely not ready to sell yet. But let's go ahead and take a look at her house in Suffolk and see if anybody is actually looking. Maybe we can convince her to sell this year. All right, so here we have that report. All I've done is put in an address, and you can see that when I put in that address, it's starting to try to find that different address that's in the system. It's going to be able to match all across the country. So for those of you who want to do this with relocation clients, or you have people moving in and out, they're going to be able to find their address in here as well. It's a very robust system. Let's just take a quick look at this report again, just so that we can remember what we're looking at, because this is going to come in handy again later. So don't forget, all of the different buttons that are on here are all calls to action. These are all things that people can do to either get in touch with you, to be able to provide more information, whatever they kind of touch in here with all these little editable pencils. All of these get nows or I am the owner claiming buttons. All of this is to entice people to enter more information into the system. So this becomes a more robust lead. Now, as we're talking, Ralston should be getting an email right now that said somebody literally has checked the value of their home at that particular address. And it's going to go ahead and give him the public record name of the owner. So we don't necessarily know if it's the actual owner of the property that's actually inquiring, or maybe it's a neighbor or somebody who wants to take a look. We talked in our last class that you can certainly use that information to do some direct mail, maybe around the neighborhood or around that particular house. Sometimes it pays off to just go ahead and kind of send a, are you thinking about selling postcard just to the neighborhood, because sometimes it's a nosy neighbor, sometimes it's actually somebody looking to sell, and we have lots of different resources. And again, if you missed that class, it is recorded right now and it is in our training library. So you can go ahead and take a look at all the different options that we have. But do know that this is a great report to be able to have people be able to receive, but also to be able to generate more leads for you as well. So let's continue to scroll down. You're going to see a lot of these elements come into play again, but this is going to give us some estimated values here. And of course, these are going to be wildly different, and they change from day to day based on what's going on in the market. In fact, if you look at the class from 2 weeks ago, you'll notice that these values have changed again, but you'll also notice that the values range from a low of 307 all the way up to 377. Don't forget, this is what people can find online automatically. These are values that are available in the public. This is what other people are seeing who are in the market to buy and also in the market to sell. So this is where you come in handy, of course, as a real estate professional and expert. This is where you can say, I can go ahead and take a look at this home. We can come up with a value. We can come up with a range that's a lot more accurate than something like this. And that's where this next call to action comes in handy. Do you really need a report from an expert? You can go ahead and contact that agent. Again, if they want to claim anything like the condition of the property, maybe they want to say that property is in excellent condition. I happen to know this home is perfect for having been built in the 50s. If they want to go ahead and say it's excellent, to be able to change that value and claim that they're the owner, again, you're going to get a different lead that allows them to claim that has more information like their name, phone number, and email address in it. It does have an equity component in it. This is an interesting one. This will be a little bit different than our last class. This home is actually paid off. So the equity in this is actually at 100%. So it's actually going to show that on here. If we continue to scroll down, it's going to show us where those buyers are searching for. Don't forget, the darker the color, the more buyers are in our system, and the more buyer activity is looking for a home like this. This is obviously a really popular area, really popular price range. We're going to see a lot of very dark coloration on this heat map. And again, this heat map is going to come into play again when we start looking at buyers and seller matches on here. If we continue to scroll down, it's going to let us know that price range and, of course, what people are looking for by bedroom. So this is a great thing to have just in case somebody is looking at a cusp of price ranges here. There's a lot of buyer activity, obviously, in that $300 to $499 price range. And don't forget, these price ranges do change, too, based on the price of the home that you're looking at. If you're working with some homes that are in the $1 million mark, some of these price ranges will fluctuate as you go through. But say this home was right on the cusp of either being maybe like $495 or $505. You were really thinking about what you wanted to put it on the market for. This would be a great chart to be able to take a look at the buyer activity. There's obviously a lot more in that under 500 range than that over 500 range in here, just to have those conversations. We get down into the buyer activity and what's going on. Look at these numbers. They're incredible. This is all things buyer activity from basically across the internet. This is an aggregated report. This is based on our website, BHHS websites, all of our agent websites, but also things like Zillow and some of the stuff that ListHub brings in and things like that. There's a lot of buyer activity going on right now. So it starts to break it down based on the activity in Virginia, based on the activity within a 5-mile radius of that address. And then the next one down is the online activities within a 5-mile radius within the home's price range. And then that last one at the very bottom there, that is an incredible number, by the way. Online activities within a 5-mile radius within the home's price range looking for up to a 3-bedroom. So, of course, this is going to be people looking for 3, 4, or 5 bedrooms on here as well. The interesting thing about this property, and as we go back up, only because I know this, is that this property could very easily be turned into a 4+ bedroom. It's a great conversation to be able to have with somebody who is looking to sell. Notice that for 3 bedrooms, we only have a buyer activity of about 41% of the people looking for a 3-bedroom. But if we could bump that up really easily to a 4-bedroom, we could pick up another 53% of the people who are looking for that 4-bedroom. So again, that great conversation to have. But here's what we are talking about today. So in our system right now, we have featured buyers searching in our area, and there are 3 within this particular zip code within that particular price range. We talked about this in our last class, that the nice thing about this system is it does show a lot of buyer activity, but it also shows some real-time buyers that are happening in the market right now that are associated with our company. Now, this buyer market activity here is all either entered manually into the system or it's based on the saved searches that come out of the site builder websites. You might notice that there's a huge range in here, and it's also confidential. Let's talk about a couple of those things first before we go and take a look at who the agents might be behind all of this data here. So you'll notice, let's take that first one, buyer ID. There's 888-6722. Notice that doesn't say Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It doesn't say who it is. It doesn't say the agent. It doesn't have any buyer notifications on it. There's no ID on it, but it does have a fairly large range. And this could be for a couple of different reasons. That particular buyer in the system may actually be looking at a fairly large range. The agent may have put it in as a large range into the system just because they could. Maybe they're looking at a lot of different options. It could also be that that particular buyer has more than one saved search. We see this pretty often if somebody is maybe looking to sell in a lower price range, so they might have a saved search just for market trends and activity, but maybe they're looking to buy up or conversely buy down. So maybe they have a home to sell in that upper price range, but they're looking at maybe downsizing into a condo. It can go either way. They could have 2 saved searches set up. Maybe they have an investment saved search set up, plus they're looking for their maybe primary residence. So even though that range is a little bit large, it could be for various reasons. It doesn't mean that it's a false buyer or any fake information or things like that. But as we continue to go on, I want you to notice that in these other 2 buyers here, ooh, that is not good. We have some buyer IDs with some different price ranges. So we have a 208 to 368. This is a fairly typical search range, obviously. And here's our buyer ID on this last one here that's 228 to 446. But here we're getting a little bit more information. There are 2+ baths and 2+ bedrooms. And notice they all say they're powered by RW Town Realty. That means it came out of our system. We do from time to time see some of the other BHHS companies that have some overlapping buyer activity in our area. We do have a couple that come out of Fredericksburg or even Richmond, even some in Northern Virginia or some of the other areas in North Carolina on occasion. So you may actually see another BHHS company in here, but you would never see a competitor. You would only see an additional BHHS company. On occasion, we'll see a Commonwealth show up in this little section on here. But for the most part, 99.9% of the time, they all say RW Town Realty on here. So let's take a look and see how we can find out the information that's behind these numbers and behind these buyer IDs and how this actually works in our system. All right, so let me go and I'm going to pop over, excuse me, while I change screens real quick. And I'm going to show you how you can get into the Buyside system. And then we're going to take a look at these buyers and how you can match your buyers and listings together. So here I am, and I am in RWT Connect. So I have already logged in. I'm logged in as one of our agents this morning, and this is what our dashboard looks like. And if I just go ahead and scroll on down, as most of you know, if you just go ahead and click that Buyside button right there, occasionally that might change spaces, but you'll always notice a Buyside button somewhere. If you go ahead and click that, it'll go ahead and log you into the system. No username or password is required to get in. And this is what it looks like when we log into the system. So I am logged in as one of our agents today because they do have a number of live listings that we need to be able to take a look at. But let's take a look at this dashboard and let's start working with some of this buyer and listing information. Now, on our dashboard, remember last time we covered that home valuation site and we covered the BMA. Today, we're really taking a look at this dashboard for the My Buyers, My Listings, and the valuations. And then we're also going to take a look at adding a buyer and adding that coming soon listing into the system. So let's take a look at the listings right now. So you'll notice that all of the listings have automatically been brought in from the MLS. In this particular case, there's 5 listings right here in this main dashboard. And you'll notice it's starting to try to find those matches. So this works really similar to the home valuation system, where it's trying to find the matches in the system. And of course, you can go in at any time. There isn't one shown on here yet, but if you do have a coming soon listing, it will also show up in this list. It'll just have a slightly different MLS ID. It'll have basically a temporary coming soon listing ID in the system, and you'll be able to start your matches from there. But let's take a look and see what those matches look like on this side. So here we have one in Virginia Beach, and right now it has 3 matches. So let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to go ahead and just click those 3 matches there. And it's just bringing up information about the property. Now, this is just bringing it up from the MLS. This is information that's available to everyone. We're not looking at any buyer ID or any information. We're not looking at anything confidential in the system. Again, this is just all brought in automatically. But we have a couple of things that we can do on our listings here. You'll notice, again, we have that listing information. This is where it's starting to match those buyers by targeted price. It's going to start to bring in some additional information, but it's also starting to say, hey, you can contact the buyer's agent. So we have agents in the system right now who have buyers who match this particular property. It's the same as the home valuation site with that little buyer list down there at the bottom. So this particular listing, again, has 3. Very easy to contact the buyer agents. The system is automatically set up to send out emails if you want to. So you can contact the buyer agent right here. It has a little pre-filled message. You are welcome to change this. So if you want to put some additional information, maybe a stronger call to action for the agent to contact you, you can do that as well. If you don't want to contact that agent via email, via the system, you can also click on these buyer IDs, and it's just going to give you some basic information about that buyer. It's only information that's been provided by the agent. And again, it's got that confidential layer into it. And you can also just look it up, pick up the phone, make that call if you want to talk to them directly. Let's come back to that real quick, but let's continue to scroll down here just on our matching buyers. There we go. So again, all of this information has been added in by our agents, or it has come in through the system by having a saved search on a client in the Site Builder site. You can see that it's going to give it a match score. So this particular person here, match is really high. 92% is really high for a listing. We've seen it as high as 100%, by the way, but it's also just trying to find ones that also semi-match in the system, but you can certainly take a look. So this was added directly to the system, and this buyer is looking for Virginia Beach Public Schools, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and around 1.2. So, and they've given some additional information here. They're looking for shore drive with a good bay view, 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom. So you can certainly decide, does this match? Does this match the criteria? Do you need to contact this agent? Do you want to, take this a little step further, pick up that phone and make that call? If you need to find out who that agent is, you have 2 different ways that you can do that. You can click on the buyer ID right here, or you can certainly click on the buyer ID over here. It's going to actually take you to the exact same place. And again, you can get additional information or you can get that agent information. So let's take a look at this 92% here and see who we might be working with. All right. So again, here's the information on that buyer ID. So again, there's that number. That's the only identifying mark, 894-8831. This is their target price. Again, big range, totally fine. They're looking for this area here. So Virginia Beach Public Schools, shore drive with a good bay view, 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom. It's going to give a little bit of more information here. They're obviously paying cash. This is when they need to purchase by. They're looking for a turnkey condo. And here's some basic information. If we continue to scroll down, it might show some additional information that's available. And again, I'm going to show you how you can add a buyer, and we're going to take a look at how you can add some of this information. But this should give you a good clue before we take a look at that add buyer section, what's available to put in. So they've added a little bit more information than, again, the like to have would be a waterfront or water view. And this agent is Jim Golden, who is in one of our offices, obviously. And we can go ahead and send him an email directly from here. Or if you want to just go ahead and take a look for him in the directory, we can also pick up the call, that phone and call. The nice thing about this system is we know that there are agents who work with lots and lots of different buyers who might not be in your office. And of course, years ago, it was very much in a silo. You only heard about the buyers from the next office over, or if somebody wrote it on the board, or if somebody put this, this information on a sheet or things like that, or if it got emailed just to your office. But it doesn't always make it beyond the office walls when we're talking about buyers. The lovely thing about this system is this is company-wide. So if you have an agent who is maybe out of our Harborview office that's working with somebody who is looking to purchase in Virginia Beach, you're going to be able to see that buyer. You're going to know about them. You're going to know about that agent in the system. And again, we're kind of all in this together. The more buyers we have in the system, the more cooperation we have, the better our reports look, the better your home value system looks, the better your buyer market analysis looks. And the more we can make those connections with people who are either in our office or out of our office to try to get more homes sold and make more matches. This is very much like a dating app for home buyers and home sellers, if you want to think about it that way. All right, so we've taken a look at this. I'm not going to go ahead and send this email right now, but just know that all you have to do is click that button that says send email, and it'll go ahead and send it out of the system, and it'll automatically go over. I do want to look at adding a buyer to the system so that you can take a look and see what this looks like, just to add one real quick. I'm going to flip over to a demo account. If you'll give me just a second, and we'll go ahead and add a buyer to this system. Bear with me one second here. The reason we do this from a demo account is because it does go out into our hot sheet. Hopefully you guys have seen that happen. At the end of the day, usually about 6 or 7 p.m., you guys should all get an email from our system that shows you all of the different coming soon listings that have been put into the system and a list of buyers that have also been added. So hopefully you're getting those notifications. If you're not, we can take a look at your notification settings and we'll be happy to help you get those set up. But switching over to a demo account just so that we don't have all of those live people going into the system here. There we go. Fortunately, I can't log in and log out of one of the other until I get completely out here. All right, So I'm back in as one of our demo accounts here, and let's go ahead and add that buyer so that you can take a look. You have a couple of different places that you can add that buyer. There's certainly a nice giant button right on your dashboard right now that says add buyer now. And you're also welcome to go up to that add section up here, and we also have add buyer and add listing. And we're going to take a look at that add listing in just a minute, but let's take a look at those buyers for now. So I'm going to go ahead and add a buyer. And of course, I'm logged in as Ralston right now, so we can go ahead and start this information. It's just going to ask us for our location. There's a couple of things that you can do here. If they are looking for a really specific school district, you can certainly put that in. I find that it's easier to go ahead and put in your cities and your zip codes just to kind of get a general idea of what people are looking for. I'm just going to go ahead and click in the cities and zip codes area, and I want to show you a really quick tip that you can get from the system. So if I go and I want to put in something like Chesapeake, instead of having to select all of the individual zip codes, if you know that they're looking for a specific city or two, you can go ahead and select all and watch what happens. It's going to populate all of those different zip codes in Chesapeake, and it's going to go ahead and bring it into the system. If you need to add some additional ones, maybe this person is looking for either Chesapeake or Suffolk. Maybe they're new doctor, maybe moving into the Centera Obicy or something like that, and they can live in either area. We can also type in something like Suffolk and add all, and we can go ahead and populate those in there. If you need to remove one for whatever reason, you can just go ahead and click that X. It'll take it right out of the system. But that select all is probably one of my favorite features in here as well. We can go ahead and add some basic information in here. So let's just say this person needs 3 bedrooms. They need at least 2.5 baths. We can populate as much or as little information in here as possible. There's only a few fields that are actually fully required. The more information that you add into the system, though, the better the chances of matching are, especially if agents are looking for buyers in the system. So we can go ahead and let's just say they're looking for at least, let's say 2,000 square feet. We're not going to worry about the floors or age of the home. We have some parking, desired lot size if we need to. They're only looking for single family detached. Maybe they're moving into the area. They only need something that's turnkey. They don't have time for a fixer-upper or TLC. They need to be able to just move in right away. Maybe they're a relocation. We can certainly check some house styles in here. Maybe they're looking, they don't really care. So colonial, contemporary. We do have a bunch of farmhouses in our area, ranch, traditional, things like that. We can also do some public remarks here. So this is giving the listing agents more insight into your buyer's general desires, what they're looking for, what they want or don't want, and where they are in the buying process. This information is what is available to other agents, obviously. So we don't want to put any confidential information in here. We just want to talk about it in generic terms. So let's just take these people. They're looking at Chesapeake and Suffolk. They need something that's turnkey. They're looking for a single family house. Maybe they're coming and they have, let's take a typical scenario here, maybe 2 little kids and a dog. So they prefer something that has a 6-foot privacy fence already installed. Let's just say something like that, something that's pretty easy. Obviously, it could be installed after they close, but it would be a lot easier if it was already installed before they got there. So you can put something like that in public remarks. You do have these little areas here called show, must, likes, and dislikes. So if they are looking for something that they must have, you saw that in that waterfront or water view in that last example I gave. Maybe they're looking for a fenced yard. It's a must. Maybe that they would like an HOA. Maybe they would like a cul-de-sac. You could certainly choose something like this. Maybe if they're coming with a couple of kids, maybe they'd like a community pool, something like that. So you can certainly choose all of the different likes, must, and dislikes in here. And again, this is just optional, but it just gives a little more information. We do have some financial information that you can put in here. So there's a qualification status, pre-qualified, cash, or none. Hopefully you've had a chance to talk to RW Town Mortgage and you have them pre-qualified. So we'll go ahead and say that they're pre-qualified, they're coming in. And of course, we have that minimum and maximum price range. Now, if you are concerned about your client's privacy, you are certainly welcome to make that range really wide. You don't have to make it really narrow. You can put whatever you want to in here. Maybe we know as an agent, this person is qualified for, let's just say up to 600. We know they want to stay maybe in that 500 range. Maybe we're going to go ahead and just give that nice wide range here. So we'll say something like 425. all the way up to maybe 750. So we're not giving away any information, but we're staying within that kind of price range where they're thinking about going. Let's go ahead and put in a date that they must purchase by. This really helps with the system with archiving. This helps so that somebody doesn't linger out there. You can certainly change this date in the system if you need to, but maybe they're coming when their school lets out and they need to move over the summer. So let's say they need to be in before September 1 again. So maybe they want to buy by the end of July. So we'll go ahead and pop that in. What kind of client are they? Let's just say they're relocation. They don't need to sell first. And then, of course, their method of payment. You don't have to fill this in if you don't want to, but if there are scenarios where this information might be helpful, maybe something like a VA loan, you could certainly put that in there. Maybe they were looking for something like a fixer-upper, something that needs TLC, and they were looking at a couple of the 203s or an exchange or something like that. You could certainly put that in there as well. Obviously, we have lots of different types of buying and financing in here for your options. They do have whether there's a buyer representation agreement signed. You can certainly put that information in there. And then we get down to the bottom. This comes up fairly often about how much information needs to go in here, and that's truly up to you. You have a couple of options here that you don't need to be alerted, and you don't need to alert the client if there's any matches. Most of the time we leave it on this middle one, which is the one we default that says alert me. That lets you know if something comes up in the system that's a match, or if there's an agent who's trying to contact you about matching. And of course, the most open variety is alert your client directly and CC me. Don't recommend that. Really recommend that you stay on that. Just alert me, that middle piece, to let you know if some information is coming up in there. Notice that all of the first name, last name, primary emails, things like that, that is all optional on here. And don't forget that the only place that if you have it on there is alert me, that information will show up is in your system. So if I was an agent on the other side, I've put this person in and they show up on somebody's home valuation report. The only thing that's going to show up is that buyer ID, that 884567 number. So even if I put that this is John Smith on here, the only place that's going to show up is in my individual dashboard as an agent. To any other agent or to any other public facing side in the system, it's just going to be an ID number. That's all it's going to be. Once you've put in this information and you've kind of verified it, you've taken a look at it, you can certainly go ahead and click add buyer. It will go ahead and add it to your dashboard. And it's also going to go ahead and add it to that hot sheet again with just that ID on it, with just the basic information that you put in here. And it's also going to go ahead and add it to any of the reports that it might match. So if somebody were to look up their own home on the home valuation site, or if they were looking obviously into the system, it would show up as that ID in there as well. Did I see that we had a question? Let me take a look real quick. Perfect. Thank you, Ralston, for this information. So Ralston has shared with me a quick piece, and this goes back to our what it looks like when somebody shares a valuation of their home. So when I checked that address to begin with, there it is, that there's the address, 1710 Colonial Avenue, and there is the property owner's name. And notice they haven't done any other verification or things like that. So there's what that email looks like. Just to backtrack just a little bit to show you what that looks like when somebody checks the value of their home. Thanks so much for sharing that, Ralston. All right. Any additional questions on the buyer matching side of this before we move on to coming soon listings? All right. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at those coming soon listings. It's really similar to adding a buyer, and you can do it in the same place. So you can either add a listing now, and again, remember, you don't need to add your active listings. Those are going to come in automatically via the MLS. You don't have to worry about that. We're talking about adding a coming soon. So you can add a listing here, or if you go up here, you can also add, and you can go to add a listing in the section as well. So let's go ahead and add a listing now. And you'll notice you're going to come to the coming soon listing section on here. We'll go ahead and add that listing. And notice the screens are really similar again. We can go ahead and add as much or as little information as need be. But don't forget that as much as information as we provide to other people, the higher the chances of matching with somebody who has a higher match score. And of course, being able to make those connections with our fellow agents when this goes out. Remember, once we add a coming soon listing into the system, you're automatically going to have that email that goes out right away that has this individual email or this individual house in it. And then it'll also be added to the hot sheet that comes out at the end of the day. So let's take a look at these coming soon listings and adding one. So we can certainly check to see whether it's going to be the address is going to be available to all users or only seen by you. We rarely use the confidential. Most of the time we don't even use it in the MLS, of course. Usually we're trying to make those matches, so we put that address in there. We're going to go ahead and put in an address, and it's going to try to match that. So if I just go ahead and just start typing here, I'm going to use that 1710 Colonial Avenue. Maybe she went ahead and checked the value of her home, decided that the values were really high and she was in the mood to sell. So let's go ahead and set it up as a coming soon listing because we have all of that paperwork signed and ready to go. Maybe we're just finishing up a little exterior painting or something like that. It's going to be on the market by the end of the week. So if I pop in that address, it's going to start to try to populate things based on what it knows and what's available for the public record in the system. So you'll notice that the only thing this filled in was, of course, the school districts. This is Suffolk City Public Schools. We know that not everything has a county in our area. So if you are in a city, you can certainly just go ahead and put in, there we go, Suffolk, and it's going to pull in that Suffolk City in here for you as well. This does work, of course, for Virginia and North Carolina alike, so everything should be fine in here. We can go ahead and put in our features. We know for a fact that this is a 3-bedroom, and the number of baths is, we're going to actually put in 1.5. And then, of course, the property type, this is a single family detached. I know for a fact that this home was built in 1956. So we'll go ahead and put that information in. And it's on a fairly substantial lot. It's actually a little over an acre, which is really great for that area of Suffolk. We could put a listing description in here. And again, this is public remarks. So we don't want to put any agent information in here. This might be visible to other people. If somebody were to forward something like this, we want to make sure that all of this information has no identifying agent information in it, and also anything that would not be normally found in public remarks. This is where I also put my disclaimer in here that we should all be following, of course, fair housing rules. So just be very careful about what you put in the listing description, but we certainly want to put something in here because we want people to know what this home is. So in this case, this home would be a great brick rancher. It has a converted garage. It has huge storage in the back. It actually has formal gardens. The kitchen and bathrooms have all been renovated. It has new carpet, new paint. This is the actual listing of this house. So we want to be able to go ahead and put all that information in there as well. You can certainly put in your commission values in here as well, very similar to what we're doing with our compensation. We have come down to pricing and timeline. Again, remember, we're not putting any custom coming soon listings in here until that paperwork is signed. We have this information. We know what it's going to be. So maybe this asking price, you know, we went through and she pulled all this information up. You went through and did all of your valuations. You've done all of your CMAs. You've pulled up the buyer market analysis. You know what the market is going to support right now. And let's just say our asking price is going to be $355. You're going to have to put a date that it's live in the MLS. Now, don't forget that this date can only be up to 2 weeks prior, so that we can't do any longer in this system. So if you have a long-term listing, just know that it's going to have to come into the system about 2 weeks ahead of time. So your live in the MLS will extend out for 2 weeks. In this particular case, maybe we know that it's going to come on Friday. And of course, your showing dates should always be the same as your time that is live in the MLS. If you have an offers reviewed on section, you are certainly welcome to put it in there. And then we get down to images. If you have not had your professional images done, this comes up pretty often. Maybe we know we're going to list this on Friday. It was raining yesterday. It's going to rain today. The photographer won't be out there till tomorrow. You want to get this information up there, and you want to do it. When you go out on your listing appointment, go ahead and just take that really pretty picture of the front. Maybe your owner has an extra photo of when everything was still blooming, and you have a really lovely photo you can add. Even just a couple of really quick semi-professional shots taken in high resolution with your cell phone would be better than nothing at all. Don't forget that these emails come out with photos in them. Our hot sheets come out with photos in them. Our system, as you could see, when you're looking at your dashboard, have photos in them. We want to make sure that we have at least one photo into the system if at all possible. So even if you don't have professional photos, go ahead and load up something. something quick and pretty that you might have taken on your listing presentation. Once you go ahead and add all the images and you add all of your stuff, I'm not going to do it today just because I don't want it to hit the hot sheet, and I certainly do not want to upset my mother-in-law by trying to sell her house out from underneath her. You can go ahead and hit that add listing button. As soon as you click that button, that email is going to go out within a few minutes to the entire company. It's going to have all of the information that I put in on this screen. And then, of course, it's going to, again, show up on that hot sheet between 6 and 7 o'clock at night whenever everything is gathered. That'll show all the different coming soons that have been available and also all the buyers that have been added. I did promise you that if you are not getting the notifications, I would show you where that is in your dashboard. So if you are not getting the notifications for coming soons, or if you're not getting the notifications for your hot sheet, if you go into the Buyside system and you go up to your picture in the upper right-hand corner and you click on My Account, you're going to come to a screen that looks like this. This is also the place where we determine what your display phone number is on your home value site. So just in case you missed that in the last class, you can also adjust it to your cell phone here. It does default to your office if you haven't changed it. But I want you to notice this over here, notification settings right here. By default, you should all be turned on. On occasion, we have found that some people have gone in and turned it off, or maybe they've changed offices or they were getting too many notifications, whatever it happens to be, they've turned off their notifications for whatever reason. Just know that that is where you're going to turn this back on, and this is where you can adjust your settings as well. And again, I highly recommend that you just leave this wide open. There aren't that many emails during the day, and you never know when an agent from another office is going to have a home that matches the criteria, and you never know when you might get a client that might be just maybe slightly outside of your normal area that you work, that you might need that information. So again, just best practices, I would just leave this wide open if possible. This is where you can take a look at your hot sheet alerts. If you're not receiving the hot sheet for whatever reason, you might be on weekly or never, go ahead and swap that over to daily. You just have to go ahead and click that. You have areas of interest. In this particular case, there's every single city in here because this happens to be an administration account. Do you want to receive email from other users? So again, do you want agents to be able to contact you when they have a listing that matches a buyer or when they have a buyer that matches a listing? Because remember, this is like that dating app for homes. It goes both ways here. So you want to make sure that that says yes. Otherwise, you're not going to be receiving those notifications when somebody has that buyer or seller match for something that you have in the system. If it's set to no, you would have to log into your dashboard all the time, and you would have to see the notifications on your dashboard instead. Do you want to know when somebody attempts evaluation? So there's that email that Ralston sent us that I showed that example of that said, hey, you know, that person at this address has checked that valuation. If you're not receiving those for whatever reason, and you know that you're putting your valuation site out there fairly often, make sure that this says yes and that you're receiving those valuation attempts. And here's that last piece, that coming soon listing notification. We want to make sure that this says for the entire company, if at all possible. Some people have had this set to only my areas of interest or do not notify me based on like old settings that they've had in the system. Again, highly recommend that you just leave this open for the entire company. It's great information to have. You never know when an office or, again, someone outside of your area might have a listing. You also never know when something might be a great match for a buyer. You also want to just keep up with the market. So for the entire company, makes a lot of sense on here. If you've made any changes at all, just go ahead and click that update button right there, and it'll go ahead and update your notifications on there. So let me go back to our dashboard here real quick and just review again. We went over how to match your buyers and how to add a buyer to the system. We went over on your listings and how to add a listing, a coming soon listing if need be. And again, remember, all of the other listings are going to come through from the MLS. Top question we get right there is what happens to a coming soon listing once it's listed in the MLS? The system actually does an address match to the system, and it'll just eliminate the coming soon and just swap it over to the MLS ID. So when your listing goes live in the MLS, it'll show up here in your dashboard. All your matches will still be the same. So if you had 6 matches on your coming soon listing, you'll have 6 matches again on your live listing as long as those buyers are still in the system. If for whatever reason you've missed any notifications or you haven't gone into the system and realized you weren't getting anything, If you need to, you do have your notification settings right here. So if you need to take a look at your 6 notification messages, there they are if you haven't received them on your email. This is why it's a little bit easier just to make sure your notification settings are sending them right to your email. So it's going to show anything that might be a perfect match for your buyer, perfect match for your listings, or of course for our purposes, anything that's in the system that we might need as well. And there's that notification from an agent that's letting us know that we might have the perfect listing for our buyer, just in the system. Does anybody have any additional questions about that matching system, about adding buyers, making sure we take a look at our matches, or adding any coming soons before we end the class? No questions. All right. Well, I am going to put a quick link in chat for all of you who have joined me today. And this is all of the different help and supporting documents for the buyer match system in Buyside, otherwise known as Percy AI. This way you can go ahead and take a look at all the little individual sections we talked about today. And of course, we're always happy to help you either in marketing or web support. Just go ahead and email marketing@rwtown.com or web support at rwtown.com, and we'll be happy to help you with Percy AI or Buyside if you get stuck on anything. I thank you so much for joining me and have a great day.